Welcome back. Lincoln currency. One of the most common pennies in your pocket, the 1991 Lincoln Memorial Cent, seems ordinary, but dig deeper, and this tiny coin tells a story of American history, art, economics, and even multi-million-dollar market intrigue. At first glance, the obverse features the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner and first issued in 1909 to mark the centennial of Lincoln's birth. Above his head arches the motto "In God We Trust," to his left liberty, and to the right, the date, 1991, and, if minted in Denver, a small D mint mark. Brenner's initials, VDB, now appear subtly near the bottom of Lincoln's bust, a modification made after controversy erupted in 1909 when his initials were originally displayed prominently. Cointrackers.com +2 and .wikipedia.org +2 coinweek.com +2. Turning over to the reverse, we see Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial design, introduced in 1959 to commemorate Lincoln's 150th birthday. The design is elegantly balanced, the image of the memorial centered, flanked by the inscriptions 1 cent, United States of America, and above it E pluribus unum. Gasparo's initials FG lie discreetly near the base of the memorial. Coinweek.com +1 graysheet.com +1. This 1 cent coin is made of copper-plated zinc, 97.5% zinc with just 2.5% copper, a formula in use since 1982. It weighs exactly 2.50 grams and has a diameter of 19.05. Musicoinbook.com +4 coinappraiser.com +4 and .wikipedia.org +4. It carries a plain edge and its striking took place at 3 locations: Philadelphia, no mint mark, Denver, D, and San Francisco, S only for proof versions. In 1991, mintages soared. The Philadelphia Mint struck approximately 5.165 billion of them, Denver about 4.158 billion, and San Francisco produced proof coins. While this seems astronomical, that year was actually the lowest Denver output of the 1990s, because of the Gulf War recession from mid-1990 to early 1991. The Times. Company UK +15 coinweek.com +15 usercoinbook.com +15. So, what's the value of today's penny from 1991? In circulated condition, it's worth exactly its face value, 1 cent. Even pristine uncirculated examples typically sell for a few cents. Certified mint state specimens, say MS63 to MS65, might fetch around 36 cents. Top quality red uncirculated pieces could go for around $1. Cointrackers.com, yet, for collectors seeking perfection, there are rarities. An MS68 red example from Philadelphia or Denver is scarce and highly desirable. The ultimate, exceptional MS69RD Denver specimen has fetched between $3,500 and $11,000 at auction. Recentlips.com +5 coinweek.com +5 pcgs.com +5. With PCGS grading populations of MS69RD coins as few as 10 as of April 2025, each example is a trophy. Coinweek.com +1 pcgs.com +1. Beyond condition, errors, and die varieties can boost value. While rare for 1991, collectors seek double dies, repunched mint marks, or die cracks, which sometimes show up on high-grade coins and attract premiums. Despite such rarities, number 1991 Lincoln penny is known to be worth $76 million or anywhere near that. Some modern coins, like 2007 D sets containing a double die obverse Lincoln cent, have sold for over $2 million, but 1991 cents haven't reached that echelon. The $76 million figure seems to come from confusion with the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar, which sold for over $10 million, but not Pennies. Coinappraiser.com. Still, pennies carry cultural and historical worth. In May 2025, the U.S. Treasury announced plans to end penny production by 2026, citing that each costs nearly 4 cents to produce, making every penny minted, ironically, a loss. Times. Company UK +3 WSJ.com +3 and .wikipedia.org +3. While collectors mourn this symbol steeped in tradition, businesses prepare for rounding retail prices to the nearest nickel. Your 1991 penny is thus a small but potent emblem. It's a relic of Lincoln, modern minting practices, wartime economics, and an upcoming end to an era. Most are worth just pennies, but a perfect, certified specimen could bring in thousands. That if you find a bright red, blemish-free 1991D with excellent eye appeal, consider submitting it for grading. Who knows? Yours might just surprise you. As we continue exploring the story behind the 1991 Lincoln cent, we dive deeper, not just into the metal or the minting process, but into the broader historical, economic, and cultural significance of this humble coin. Because while it may be just a penny to most, to coin collectors, historians, and numismatists, it's a small artifact filled with meaning. Let's step back to 1991, a year marked by dramatic changes worldwide. The Cold War had just ended, the Soviet Union was dissolving, the Gulf War had recently concluded, and the United States was entering a mild recession. Despite economic difficulties, the mint still produced over 9 billion 1-cent coins across all facilities. Why? Because pennies were still heavily used in everyday commerce. In fact, they were so commonly used that the average American would encounter one in virtually every single transaction. Coins like the 1991 cent were the economic DNA of the American marketplace, but the significance of this coin goes far beyond monetary usage. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, first introduced in 1909, was revolutionary. It marked the first time a real person, rather than an allegorical figure, was used on American circulating coinage. Victor David Brenner, a Lithuanian immigrant and sculptor, crafted a portrait that conveyed dignity, reverence, and resolve. His original design was meant for a commemorative coin, but President Theodore Roosevelt was so impressed with Brenner's work that he insisted it be used on a circulating coin. That decision forever changed American coinage design, and the Lincoln penny became the longest-running U.S. coin design in history. The reverse design, introduced in 1959, honored another architectural and historical tribute to Lincoln, the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. Frank Gasparo's rendering of the memorial was more than just an image, it was a symbol of permanence, honor, and democracy. And if you look closely with a magnifying glass, you'll even see the tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial on the coin's reverse, a remarkable detail given the coin's small size. Now, about the composition. Prior to 1982, pennies were made of 95% copper. But due to rising metal costs, the U.S. Mint switched to copper-plated zinc that year. The new composition, 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper, was cheaper to produce. However, these newer pennies are prone to corrosion and degradation if the copper coating is damaged, especially if exposed to moisture. This is one reason high-grade examples from the zinc era are more difficult to find. Most 1991 cents, even those stored in drawers or jars for decades, will show spotting, toning, or discoloration. So finding a brilliant, red-colored coin with no marks or blemishes, graded MS 68 or higher, is a rare and exciting moment for a collector. You might be wondering, if this coin is so common, how can any of them be worth thousands, let alone millions? Here's where rarity and condition intersect. In numismatics, value is driven by scarcity and demand. A 1991 D penny, for instance, might only be worth a penny in circulated condition, but if it's in perfect condition, flawless under magnification, with deep red luster and zero contact marks, it could earn an MS 69 RD grade from PCGS or NGC. These coins are exceedingly rare. There are fewer than a dozen known examples at that level, and they are chased by serious registry set collectors. In these elite cases, auction prices can skyrocket into 5 figures. Still, no authentic 1991 cent has sold for $76 million. That number may sound fantastic, and some internet rumors or misleading TikTok videos might claim such figures, but in reality, the record prices for Lincoln cents are far more modest. That being said, collectors have paid over $10,000 for high-grade or error versions of recent Lincoln cents, and it's not unthinkable that future specimens with extraordinary provenance or discovery status could push even higher. Let's talk about errors. The U.S. Mint's quality control process is rigorous, but given the sheer volume of coins struck annually, some mistakes inevitably slip through. For the 1991 Lincoln cent, there are known minor errors, off-center strikes, die cracks, die clashes, and a few repunched mint marks, RPMs. These errors can be fascinating to collectors. A 1991 D with a 10% off center strike and full date might sell for $15 to $50 depending on eye appeal. A more dramatic error, say, 50% off center or struck on a dime planchet, could bring hundreds. Then there are the proof coins, minted in San Francisco. These aren't meant for circulation, they are specially struck for collectors with polished dies and multiple strikes to enhance detail and luster. A 1991 S-proof Lincoln cent, especially in PR 70 deep cameo, is highly prized. While it's not worth a fortune, usually trading between $20 and $60, it represents the pinnacle of the mint's artistry and production standards. The market for Lincoln cents is incredibly diverse. There are thousands of collectors building date and mint mark sets, type sets, or error collections. Others focus solely on condition, striving to own the finest known example of each date. The registry set competition, especially for modern coins, is fierce. It's not uncommon for collectors to spend thousands on a single coin simply because it's the finest known or the only MS-69RD example for a certain year. The 1991 cent is no exception, but perhaps the most compelling aspect of the 1991 penny is its symbolic weight. As the last full decade of analog America, the early 1990s were a time of transition. It was the end of the Cold War, the rise of personal computing, and the beginning of a new global economy. The penny from 1991 was exchanged in corner stores, vending machines, and newspaper boxes, a tiny witness to a world about to change dramatically. Today, the future of the penny is uncertain. For years, the U.S. government has debated ending production. It costs more to make a penny than it's worth, and modern digital payments have reduced the need for low-denomination coins. In 2024, legislation was introduced in Congress to phase out the cent by 2026. That means coins like the 1991 penny will soon be relics of a bygone era. Their disappearance from circulation will make existing examples more nostalgic, perhaps even more valuable in decades to come. Still, millions of 1991 cents remain in jars, drawers, and piggy banks across America. Some are lost in couch cushions or buried in backyards. But among them, a few gleaming specimens, flawless, untarnished, and untouched, await discovery. And for the lucky person who finds such a coin, the value could be surprising. So, the next time you see a penny on the sidewalk, don't just walk past it. Take a closer look. Check the date. Examine the condition. You might be holding a piece of history, one that connects you to Abraham Lincoln, to American craftsmanship, to economic shifts, and maybe even to the thrilling world of numismatics, and who knows? That small copper-colored disc could be worth more than just 1 cent. It might just be your gateway into a fascinating hobby, or, if you're truly fortunate, a valuable collectible that brings you one step closer to history. There's something undeniably special about a coin that can fit between your fingers yet holds decades, centuries even, of history. The 1991 1-cent coin, seemingly unimportant, is in many ways a mirror of America itself, hardworking, enduring, flawed yet fascinating. Its life begins in silence and fire, struck from zinc blanks plated with copper, through high-speed presses under 35 to 50 tons of pressure. The dies that impart Abraham Lincoln's likeness and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse meet the blank for just a fraction of a second, yet that split second ensures its identity is sealed for decades, possibly centuries. Each coin has a story. Consider where a 1991 penny might have traveled. From minting facilities in Philadelphia or Denver, these coins likely moved through banks, registers, vending machines, coat pockets, couch cushions, and laundromats. One might have bought a piece of gum at a gas station in Kansas. Another might have been part of change given to a child buying candy in Detroit. One may have fallen between the floorboards of a 1995 Honda Civic and stayed there until the car was scrapped. Pennies disappear in quiet ways, but they remain cultural fingerprints on the American landscape. But not all 1991 pennies are created equal. Most are common, worn, and spent. Some are still brilliant and untouched. A small number, those few that escaped human handling, ended up in coin rolls that were never opened, or bags set aside by banks or collectors. These are the coins that fascinate numismatists. If kept in a dry, dark place, free from air, moisture, or friction, they may still shine red, the copper glinting like a newly minted sunrise. These are the candidates for high mint state grades, MS-65, MS-67, even MS-68 or MS-69, where the difference between a $1 coin and a $10,000 one may be a single minuscule nick invisible to the naked eye. The grading scale is precise. On the Sheldon scale, developed by Dr. William Sheldon in 1949, coins are graded from 1, poor, to 70, perfect. A 1991 penny graded MS-70, mint state 70, is theoretically flawless, no nicks, no abrasions, perfect luster, centered strike. While number 1991 cent has been confirmed at MS-70, the few that approach that level, MS-69 RDs, are extremely scarce. In fact, fewer than 15 examples across all mints have reached that level at PCGS and NGC combined. This is why registry collectors, those competing for the highest-ranked sets, will pay thousands for one. Not because of its age or rarity, but because of its condition. In coin collecting, quality is everything, and yet, misinformation floods the internet. You may have seen headlines, 1991 penny worth $76 million. These are typically clickbait articles, designed to draw attention, not report facts. Number 1991 Lincoln cent, copper or zinc, has ever sold for even a fraction of that amount. The most expensive Lincoln cent ever sold was the 1943 D bronze planchet error, which fetched $1.7 million in private sale. That's a unique off-metal error, not part of the regular mintage. In contrast, the 1991 cent was a standard-issue coin with billions struck. Even the finest 1991 DMS69 RD examples only reached the $10,000 to $12,000 mark in the right market. So why the myth of the $76 million penny? It likely stems from confusion between record-breaking coins and modern issues. When rare coins like the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar or the 1933 double eagle hit auction records, $10 million, $18 million, people assume that other coins must also carry similar hidden value. Add in social media influencers who often don't understand numismatics, and you get viral misinformation. But while the $76 million claim is fiction, the value of curiosity, learning, and collecting is very real. Numismatics is not just about money. It's about history, precision, art, and the thrill of discovery. The 1991 Lincoln penny is an ideal gateway into the hobby. It's affordable. It's widely available. And it's tied to a fascinating moment in American history. Not only was it part of the first full decade of zinc-based cents, but it also sits squarely between major coin design eras. In 2009, the reverse design changed to commemorate Lincoln's bicentennial and legacy. Then, in 2010, the reverse changed again to the shield design. The 1991 Memorial Reverse is part of a disappearing series, just a few years before the design shifted. Let's not forget how minting technology changed during this time. In 1991, the mint was refining its die-making process. Hubs and master dies were becoming more precise. High-speed coining presses were more efficient than ever before. And computer-assisted engraving was beginning to replace traditional hand-carved master dies. While most of this went unnoticed by the general public, collectors today can identify the subtle shifts in strike sharpness, die alignment, and even surface texture. These details matter, especially when determining condition and value. Another fascinating angle is the story of coins that never should have existed, off-metal errors. Imagine a penny struck on a dime planchet, thinner, smaller, and with the wrong metal composition. Or struck on a foreign coin blank, which occasionally happens during transition periods when the U.S. Mint produced coins for other nations. While there are no confirmed examples of 1991 Lincoln cents struck on off-metal planchets, a few pieces have been discovered on slightly underweight zinc planchets, likely manufacturing errors. These, when certified and confirmed, can command significant premiums. There's also the phenomenon of struck-through errors, where a piece of debris, grease, or cloth gets between the die and the planchet during striking, creating odd impressions. Or die caps, where a coin becomes lodged on a die and continues to strike other coins, forming bizarre, deformed shapes. While most of these are novelties, they are beloved by error collectors and add a whole new dimension to a basic coin like the 1991 cent. So where do we go from here? What's the future of the 1991 Lincoln penny? While billions exist in the wild, time is not on their side. Zinc cents are particularly susceptible to corrosion. As decades pass, more and more are being discarded, lost, damaged, or destroyed. Coin counting machines often reject corroded zinc cents. And with inflation, pennies are being used less and less. The Mint has reported that demand for cents has dropped significantly since 2020. As pennies fade from use, older examples like the 1991 cent will become more collectible, not for their rarity, but for their representation of a time when the penny still mattered. Eventually, it's possible the US Mint may follow Canada's lead. Canada stopped producing the penny in 2012. Australia ended its 1-cent coin in 1992. Sweden and Finland have phased out low-denomination coins. If and when the US discontinues the cent, coins like the 1991 penny will remain in collections, heirlooms, and archives. And 100 years from now, when collectors of the 22nd century study 20th century coinage, the 1991 Lincoln cent might be seen not as ordinary, but as an emblem of a vanished age. So the next time you hold a 1991 penny in your hand, remember, it may not be worth $76 million, but it represents far more than its face value. It's part of a story, of copper and zinc, of Lincoln and Roosevelt, of war and peace, of recessions and revivals, of machines and memory. It's a coin that's been to pocket change and back again. And if you're patient, observant, and a little lucky, it might just lead you into the fascinating, rewarding world of numismatics, where every coin is a journey, and every journey starts with 1 cent. There's something deeply human about the act of collecting. It's not just about acquiring things, it's about stories. Objects, especially coins like the 1991 penny, act as vessels of memory. They carry within them fragments of history, value, mystery, even emotion. And in the case of coin collectors, or numismatists, to use the proper term, what starts as a small curiosity can easily grow into a lifelong passion. A single coin found on the sidewalk might become the spark that ignites decades of fascination. The 1991 penny is an excellent example. It's common, yes, but that's exactly what makes it accessible. It's the coin that introduces beginners to mint marks, to date sets, to color grading. One might start with a pocketful of random change and notice that some 1991 cents are dull and brown while others are bright red and shiny. That discovery leads to understanding the grading scale, red, RD, red-brown, RB, and brown, BN, and how those designations affect value. Before long, the collector is sorting, cataloging, researching, and maybe even submitting coins for grading. Coin grading is both an art and a science. It's handled by a few major companies, including the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, the Numismatic Guarantee Company, NGC, and Annax. Submitting a coin for grading involves sending it in, paying fees, and awaiting a professional assessment. Once graded, the coin is encapsulated in a tamper-proof plastic holder, often referred to as a slab. The label indicates the year, mint mark, grade, and certification number. For coins like the 1991 cent, especially high-grade examples, this encapsulation gives buyers confidence in authenticity and quality, important in a market where even tiny differences in condition can mean thousands of dollars, but grading isn't infallible. Sometimes, coins are cracked out of slabs and resubmitted in hopes of a higher grade, a practice called grade flipping. This speaks to the competitive side of collecting, where the top registry sets are driven by subtle distinctions. A coin graded MS68RD is excellent, but if just one MS69RD exists, it becomes the pinnacle, the holy grail, for that year and mint mark. And because coins like the 1991 penny exist in such high numbers, having the best-known specimen becomes a matter of prestige, not just investment. There's also psychology involved. Collectors are driven by goals: completing a full date and mint set, finding an elusive variety, upgrading a well-loved coin with a better example. And coins are tactile, personal. Unlike digital assets or stocks, you can hold a coin. You can examine it under light, weigh it, flip it in your palm. It makes a sound, has a feel. It creates a bond that paper or pixels rarely match. For many, collecting is also emotional. It's linked to childhood memories, to time spent with a parent or grandparent, or the joy of a first discovery. Imagine a 10-year-old boy who finds a 1991 penny in pocket change, notices its deep red shine, and stores it in a plastic 2x2 holder. 20 years later, he still remembers that coin, not because it's rare, but because it was his first. The value isn't monetary. It's nostalgic. It's personal. That's the true power of coins, and some collections become legacies. Stories abound of collectors who quietly amassed hundreds or even thousands of coins across a lifetime, only to have them discovered decades later in cigar boxes, old dressers, or attic trunks. A collection of 1991 pennies might not raise eyebrows, until a sharp-eyed appraiser notices one in an unusually high grade or struck on the wrong planchet. Suddenly, a coin that's been sitting quietly for 30 years becomes a headline at auction. Auctions are another world entirely. Whether held by heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, or great collections, coin auctions are events that blend excitement, strategy, and market awareness. A single 1991 Lincoln Cent, certified MS69RD by PCGS, might start bidding at $1,000. Within minutes, competitive bidders, perhaps from different states or even countries, push it to $5,000, then $7,500. Why? Because that coin is the finest known for its type. Because it completes a registry set. Because it's a trophy. And because, as any collector will tell you, the heart sometimes leads the wallet, but coin collecting isn't always about high-dollar pieces. For every headline-grabbing auction, there are countless quiet trades, coin clubs in community centers, online forums where collectors share discoveries, estate sales where coins are picked from overlooked drawers. The 1991 cent thrives in these spaces. It's a coin that bridges generations. It's still new enough to be modern, yet old enough to be historic. For younger collectors, it offers a chance to understand how coins have changed since the 20th century. For older collectors, it's a reminder of a simpler time. Let's also acknowledge that coin collecting offers more than just emotional satisfaction. It teaches history, geography, economics, metallurgy, and art. Studying the 1991 Lincoln Cent means learning about the U.S. Mint's production facilities in Denver and Philadelphia. It means learning why the San Francisco Mint only makes proof coins. It means discovering how rising metal prices forced a shift from copper to zinc, and how the coin's composition affects its preservation. It means understanding the difference between die polish lines and scratches, or spotting the subtle doubling of a die variety. As for investment, while most 1991 pennies won't make you rich, the right combination of condition, rarity, and demand can yield surprising results. In particular, collectors seeking to build red registries for every date and mint mark are willing to pay top dollar for coins that meet the highest standards. An MS69RD 1991D, slabbed and verified, is a coin that could sell for more than a new car. And if it's the only one known at that grade, or one of just a handful, it will remain valuable for as long as registry competition exists. There's also the market factor. The numismatic market ebbs and flows like any other. When economic uncertainty rises, tangible assets like gold, silver, and collectible coins often gain popularity. During the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, interest in coins surged. Hobbyists returned to their collections, new collectors emerged, and rare coin prices climbed. Even common coins, when in extraordinary condition, saw higher demand. The 1991 cent, especially in premium grades, benefited from this trend. Looking forward, what might the next decades hold for the 1991 penny? As digital payments become more dominant, and as cash usage declines, physical coins will gradually become less common. Children growing up today may never carry change in their pockets. That makes physical coins more intriguing, more novel. And as the U.S. Mint prepares for a potential discontinuation of the penny, something discussed for years and now under serious consideration, the 1991 cent, and others like it, will no longer be struck. They will transition fully from currency to collectible. From tool to artifact, and someday, perhaps a century from now, a numismatist in the year 2125 may examine a well-preserved 1991 cent under a digital microscope, marveling at its preservation, its history, and the story it tells. They may research its mintage numbers, its zinc composition, its 20th century context. They might even watch a digital archive of this very video and say, back then, they knew what they had. They understood that even a penny could be priceless, not for its spending power, but for its meaning. So keep your eyes open. Search your change. Look closely. Examine every coin. You never know what you'll find. That single 1991 penny in your pocket might not be worth $76 million, but in the right condition, in the right context, to the right collector, it could be worth much more than you expect, and more importantly, it might lead you into a world where stories are struck in metal, where history can be held in your hand, and where even the smallest things, like a 1-cent coin from 1991, can become a gateway to wonder. As we travel deeper into the life of the 1991 penny, we must visit the very heart of its birth, the United States Mint. With facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, and West Point, the U.S. Mint is one of the oldest federal institutions in the country, established in 1792. It exists not only to produce coinage for commerce but also to reflect national identity through design, precision, and consistency. In 1991, the Mint was undergoing a quiet but significant transformation. New technologies were being adopted. The shift from hand-engraved master dies to computer-assisted engraving systems was well underway. The quality control systems were improving, although still largely analog in their detection methods. Every coin produced at the time had to pass through inspections that aimed to minimize striking errors, alignment problems, die deterioration, and planchet issues, and yet, no system is perfect. With billions of coins being struck, even a tiny percentage of error meant that tens of thousands of imperfect coins slipped into circulation. But here's the secret collectors know well: those imperfections are often what make a coin valuable. The U.S. Mint didn't intend for 1991 cents to have doubled dies, repunched mint marks, or off-metal strikes, but when they happened, they became treasures. They became conversation starters. They became the highlight of a collection. Even the Mint itself has come to embrace its role not just as a producer of coinage, but as a creator of collectible art. And while the 1991 cent wasn't released with collector sets beyond the usual proof and mint sets, it still stands as a product of a maturing minting system, one that was laying the groundwork for more artistic and elaborate coins to come in the following decades. After 1991, the Lincoln cent saw several major shifts. In 2009, to celebrate the 200th anniversary of Lincoln's birth and the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln cent itself, the U.S. Mint released 4 special reverse designs depicting scenes from Lincoln's life: his log cabin childhood in Kentucky, his formative years in Indiana, his professional life in Illinois, and finally, his presidency in Washington, D.C. These designs, beautiful, symbolic, and historically rich, were a temporary departure from the familiar Lincoln Memorial. In 2010, the penny underwent yet another change. The reverse was redesigned once more, this time with a Union shield, a simple but powerful representation of Lincoln's preservation of the Union. This design remains in use today, but it feels distinctly modern compared to the classical lines of the memorial reverse on the 1991 cent. The evolution of the Lincoln penny reflects changes in both numismatic taste and national tone. From traditional to transitional, from portraiture to symbolism, the penny has been both a constant and a chameleon. While the U.S. Mint continued to refine its production methods, the rest of the world was also re-evaluating its relationship with low-denomination coinage. Canada discontinued its 1-cent coin in 2012. Australia phased theirs out in 1992. Countries like the Netherlands, Finland, and New Zealand have all moved away from small-denomination coins, favoring digital transactions or rounding systems. Why? Because it simply costs more to produce a penny than its face value justifies. In the US, it currently costs about 2.7 to 3.5 cents to make a single penny, depending on inflation, metal costs, and labor rates. That means every 1991 penny minted cost more to create than it was worth even then. Today, the economic loss is even steeper. But the penny persists, held in place more by nostalgia and tradition than practicality. Americans are emotionally attached to the penny. Abraham Lincoln, the nation's most revered president, graces its face. It's often the first coin a child sees or collects. It's used in idioms and sayings: a penny for your thoughts, a pretty penny, penny wise, pound foolish. Even the act of finding a penny on the ground is imbued with folklore. Find a penny, pick it up, and all day long, you'll have good luck. This isn't just coinage, it's culture, but the conversation is changing. In 2024, the U.S. Treasury formally commissioned a long-term impact study on the economic consequences of ending penny production. The results suggested that while the transition would be complex, especially for cash-based industries and low-income populations, it could save taxpayers millions annually. If the U.S. follows through, possibly as early as 2026, the 1991 penny and its siblings will become finite. No more will be struck. The only Lincoln Memorial cents that exist will be those already in circulation or preserved in collections. That brings us to the question: what happens to coins after they're no longer made? The answer is complex. At first, they remain in circulation. People still use them without noticing the absence of new examples. Over time, banks, businesses, and the public begin to turn them in or round them out. They get melted, rejected by machines, or simply lost to time. The number in active circulation dwindles, and the surviving examples, especially uncirculated or high-grade ones, become more collectible. This has happened before. Look at the half-cent, last struck in 1857. Or the 2-cent piece, last struck in 1873. Once gone, they become historical tokens, studied, preserved, and treasured. The 1991 penny is poised to follow that same trajectory. Already, sealed rolls, mint sets, and proof examples are being snapped up. Collectors know the writing is on the wall. And as these coins disappear from daily use, their meaning only grows. A coin once worth 1/100th of a dollar now becomes a snapshot of the late 20th century, a small, round, copper-plated time capsule. Collectors, historians, educators, and even artists will look at this coin and see different things. A collector sees condition, mint mark, and strike quality. A historian sees Lincoln, Roosevelt, and the economic shifts of the 1980s and 90s. An educator sees an opportunity to teach about metallurgy, economics, and inflation. And an artist sees design, light, texture, and narrative. Each perspective adds a new layer to the coin story, and that's what makes the 1991 penny, yes, even this lowly, nearly forgotten coin, worth more than its monetary value. It's a living artifact. It's the physical manifestation of a moment in history. And while it may never be worth $76 million in actual cash, its true value lies in what it represents: continuity, heritage, and the unexpected wonder of everyday things. So we close this chapter not with a sale price or an auction hammer, but with a reflection. The next time you hold a penny, any penny, whether from 1991 or 2021, take a moment. Turn it over. Look at the design. Think about where it's been. How many hands it's passed through. How it came into being. How it might have been part of a child's lunch money, or a war veteran's change, or a grandparent's tip at a diner. Each penny carries its own secret biography, and that's the magic. In your hand, a coin. In your heart, a story. Long before the 1991 Lincoln cent rolled off the presses in Denver and Philadelphia, before zinc and copper were bonded and pressed into discs, before Abraham Lincoln's portrait first graced an American coin, there existed a concept that humans have clung to for millennia: the idea of the small coin. In ancient Lydia, around 600 BC, the first coins were minted, tiny, bean-shaped pieces of electrum, a natural alloy of gold and silver. They weren't minted for kings or for collectors, but for use, for bread, olives, wine. Since then, nearly every culture that adopted coinage has produced some form of low-denomination currency. Whether it was the Roman as, the British farthing, or the Japanese rin, people have always needed a humble unit, an object of minimal value that could serve in the minutiae of daily life. The penny, in all its incarnations, is the inheritor of that tradition, and in the United States, the Lincoln cent sits at the heart of it. Since 1909, the U.S. 1-cent coin has told a story, not just of Lincoln's legacy, but of America's evolving sense of design, production, utility, and value. The 1991 penny, in particular, represents the height of mass coinage. With over 9 billion units struck that year, it's a symbol of scale. It's the industrial age encapsulated in copper and zinc, but even the most common coin can hide within it a rare variant, or a place in history's great hoards. Let's talk about hoards. In numismatic lore, the word hoard conjures excitement. It refers to large quantities of coins, usually stored together for long periods, often forgotten or hidden. Some hoards are accidental, an old collection tucked in a chest, untouched for decades. Others are deliberate, stashed away in fear, in response to war, economic crisis, or political instability. The most famous American hoard? Likely the Redfield hoard, over 400,000 silver dollars discovered in a basement in Nevada, hidden away by millionaire LaVere Redfield. Or the GSA hoard, millions of Morgan dollars released from U.S. Treasury vaults in the 1970s. While most hoards focus on silver or gold, copper coins, especially Lincoln cents, have their own mythology. Across the U.S., garages and attics contain 5-gallon buckets of pennies. Banks occasionally receive sealed boxes of original cent rolls, untouched since the 1980s and 90s. Sometimes, collectors stumble upon a stash of 1991 D or 1991 P rolls, still sealed in their original Federal Reserve wrapping. These, original bank-wrapped rolls, OBWRs, can be a gold mine, not because the coins inside are rare, but because they've been protected. Unsearched. And inside, there's a chance, a small but real chance, that a nearly perfect MS-68 or MS-69 cent waits, unhandled, waiting to be found. These moments are what collectors dream of. It's also what fuels modern treasure hunts. The 1991 penny has become a part of online coin roll hunting communities, where hobbyists buy boxes of pennies, $1.25 at a time, 2,500 coins per box, and search for gems. These searches aren't just for rare mint errors or varieties, they're quests for high-grade coins that might make the cut for professional grading. Each box is a mystery. Each coin a possibility, and still, we return to a fundamental truth: the 1991 penny, in most hands, will never be more than 1 cent. But it remains a physical link to a time and a tradition that transcends its denomination. Let's pivot to metallurgy, the literal composition of this coin. Prior to 1982, Lincoln cents were made of 95% copper. But copper prices surged in the early 80s. It became economically unsustainable for the mint to continue using copper. In response, the U.S. Mint changed the composition to copper-plated zinc. Since 1982, the standard cent has consisted of a zinc core, 97.5%, and a thin outer layer of copper, 2.5%. This coating is just 8 microns thick, roughly the width of a human red blood cell. The change saved millions, but it also created a new challenge: zinc is reactive. When exposed to moisture or acidic conditions, zinc corrodes quickly. If the copper plating is scratched, breached, or flawed during the minting process, corrosion can begin almost immediately. You've likely seen this: 1990s pennies that are pitted, flaky, or covered in white spots. That's zinc rot. And it's one reason why high-grade zinc cents, like those from 1991, are so rare. Preserving them requires careful handling. Gloves. Dry conditions. Protective holders. Once tarnish begins, it can't be undone. Which makes perfect examples, those few flawless MS-69 RD specimens, even more precious. Globally, America's attachment to the penny is increasingly unique. Many countries have recognized the inefficiency of low-denomination coins and have eliminated them. Yet, the US persists. Why? Tradition. Symbolism. Emotion. Abraham Lincoln's face, enduring and resolute, is more than just a portrait. It's a connection. Lincoln, who guided the country through its darkest hours, whose leadership ended slavery, who believed in unity, continues to be the moral face of America's smallest denomination. There's a quiet irony in that. Lincoln, the great emancipator, the orator of the Gettysburg Address, the president who stood taller than most in American history, is honored on the smallest, most overlooked coin. But maybe that's the point. Maybe Lincoln's presence on the penny is a daily reminder of humility. Of leadership through hardship. Of value, not always measured in dollars or millions, but in perseverance and principle. The 1991 cent is a part of that tradition. Not an elite coin. Not a golden rarity. But a worker. A witness. A traveler across decades. As collectors, when we sift through jars or open old mint sets, we're not just looking for profit. We're decoding the past. We're touching the metal that moved through millions of lives. That sat on countertops during presidential elections, that passed through hands during recessions and celebrations. That carried a sliver of Lincoln's dignity into grocery stores, diners, toll booths, and tip jars. That's the secret that coin collectors understand. Coins are more than money. They are memory. They are history. They are humanity, struck into metal. And so, the 1991 penny, struck in silence, spent without notice, forgotten by most, still speaks. It speaks through its wear, its patina, its preservation or decay. It speaks when someone, flipping through change, pauses and says, 1991. Huh. It speaks when a collector finds that one perfect piece. Or when a child holds it up to the light and begins their journey into history. It speaks through its presence, small, circular, simple, and, perhaps, immortal. When we look at a coin, especially something as small and familiar as a 1991 penny, we rarely stop to consider what it truly is. Not just materially, not just historically, but symbolically, because coins, in every civilization, in every language, have always been more than metal. They're tokens of trust. They're the condensed contract between government and people, a physical emblem of the social order we've agreed to uphold. A coin is a promise. This has value because we all say it does. The fact that you can hand a stranger a small disc of copper-plated zinc and walk away with bread, coffee, or a borrowed favor, that is a uniquely human kind of magic. The 1991 Lincoln penny is part of that magic. Not because it's expensive or rare, but because it's a physical participant in the grand fiction of value that we all share. And in a world increasingly defined by digital abstractions, contactless payments, cryptocurrencies, wireless transactions, a physical coin becomes something grounding. It has weight, texture, temperature. It's real. It jingles in your pocket. It gets lost in the couch. It ends up in a jar on a kitchen counter with 50 of its siblings, each with its own quiet story. We give coins power by using them. But we give them meaning by remembering them, and that's where the penny transcends its value. In literature, a coin is often a symbol. A moment of fate, a turning point. Think of the old saying, two sides of the same coin. It's an idiom that goes beyond currency. It reflects duality. Life and death. Heads and tails. Choice and chance. The flip of a penny is the simplest metaphor for fate that humans have ever created. In stories, a single coin can mean escape or doom. It can buy mercy or reveal identity. In ancient texts, a coin placed on the eyes of the dead paid Charon, the ferryman of Hades, for passage into the afterlife. In Christian scripture, the widow's mite is honored because it was all she had, showing us that the value of a coin isn't always in its metal, but in the intent behind its giving. So what is the story of the 1991 Lincoln penny? It's not just a mass-produced object. It's a witness. A participant. It was there, at bus stops, in baristas' tip jars, in the dusty spaces between commerce and memory. It passed through hands you'll never know. It may have been part of a cashier's drawer when a couple shared their first date. Or used to pay for gas on a road trip. Or dropped into a fountain, carrying a wish that may or may not have come true. Coins become carriers of intention. Not just monetary exchange, but emotional weight. Think about the coins we keep. A penny from the year a loved one was born. A coin from a vacation. A wheat cent given by a grandparent. These coins are valueless in economic terms, but priceless in memory. The 1991 penny has now aged over 3 decades. It was born at a time when landlines still ruled, when the Cold War was ending, when music was analog and information traveled slowly. Since then, the world has changed dramatically. And yet this coin remains the same. The design, the diameter, the face of Lincoln looking solemn and forward. That consistency becomes something sacred. You see, humans are drawn to the consistent. In a world of flux, we hold on to things that don't change. The penny is one of those things. And for all the talk of its discontinuation, its cost of production, its irrelevance in modern commerce, there's something beautiful in the fact that it endures. That we still, in 2025, mint billions of these little discs. That people still collect them. That kids still find them on sidewalks and light up with curiosity. That some of us, perhaps you, watching this video, keep one in your pocket, even if you don't know why. Maybe it's superstition. Maybe it's habit. Or maybe, deep down, we understand that even something as small as a 1-cent coin can carry more meaning than its size suggests. In many spiritual traditions, the smallest offerings carry the most power. Not because of their quantity, but because of their sacrifice. The act of giving, of placing something of ourselves into the world, creates value beyond measurement. The 1991 penny isn't precious metal. It's not rare. It isn't enshrined in velvet cases in museums. But it was made. It was used. It circulated. It bore witness. And it returned, to a collector, to a roll, to a story. Even the worn-out coins, the ones with half the plating rubbed off, with nicks and corrosion and grime, carry honor. Because they worked. They served. They moved through time with purpose. And for that, they deserve remembrance. The coin's journey mirrors our own. We're born. We enter the world with shine and potential. We pass through moments, some sharp, some soft. We weather conditions we can't control. And we change. We lose luster, but gain meaning. We acquire marks, some of pain, some of memory. And if we're lucky, we end up in someone's hand again. Maybe even someone who sees us not for our surface, but for our story. That's what coin collecting teaches us, that value isn't fixed, that age doesn't equal decline, that small things are often the most meaningful, and that the things we pass over, the pennies we overlook, may hold the greatest truths. So yes, the 1991 Lincoln penny is not rare. Yes, it's made of zinc. Yes, it's mostly worth 1 cent. But when we look deeper, when we take the time to understand it, we realize something extraordinary, that even a coin with 9 billion siblings can be unique, that even something small can carry the weight of history, and that the act of looking closely, of caring about something so easy to discard, is itself an act of grace. You may never find a 1991 cent worth $76 million, but maybe, just maybe, you'll find one that changes how you see value, and in the end, that's worth more than any price tag. In every country, coinage is more than commerce, it is a canvas, and the 1991 Lincoln cent, like so many before and after it, is not just a monetary tool but a work of design. It is sculpture in miniature. It is portable propaganda. It is national messaging in your hand, in your pocket, in your memory. Every time a coin is struck, a nation chooses what to say about itself. Who do we honor? What buildings do we feature? What symbols do we present to the world and to ourselves? In this way, the humble penny becomes a form of soft power, a small, ubiquitous ambassador that silently speaks of our values, our stories, and our identity. The United States chose Abraham Lincoln for its 1-cent coin in 1909 not just to mark his 100th birthday, but because Lincoln represents a certain moral weight, an enduring American aspiration toward unity, justice, and strength through humility. Before Lincoln, American coins featured allegorical figures like Lady Liberty, goddesses, and eagles, symbols of ideals. But Lincoln changed everything. He was a real person. A martyr. A man who had walked the muddy paths of Kentucky barefoot, who had debated slavery and preserved a union. When you mint a coin with someone's face, you don't just commemorate them, you canonize them. So in 1991, when billions of pennies were struck with Lincoln's likeness and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, it wasn't just about economic efficiency. It was about cultural continuity. It was about reaffirming, in a decade full of global transition, the end of the Cold War, the Gulf War, NAFTA, the explosion of the personal computer, that America still remembered where it came from. The Lincoln Memorial, visible on the reverse of every 1991 cent, is not just architecture, it is a shrine. It is one of the few coins in the world that features a building which, in real life, houses the very statue you can barely glimpse within the coin's engraving. That detail, so subtle it takes a magnifying glass to see, is one of numismatics' most poetic choices. It reminds us that even in our smallest currency, the United States embeds a vision of its democratic ideals. Globally, coins have long been vehicles for national messaging. Ancient Roman emperors used coinage to assert legitimacy, spread military victories, and show lineage. In modern times, authoritarian states have used coins and stamps to project strength, invincibility, or divine rule. In democracies, coinage serves a softer function: to educate, to unite, to build cultural literacy. Think of how a child first learns about Abraham Lincoln. It might not be through textbooks or classrooms, but through a coin. Through a penny held up to the light. The 1991 cent may have been many Americans' first lesson in portraiture, in reverence, in remembering who led during a nation's darkest hour. Coin designs are selected by committees, reviewed by engravers, refined over months, sometimes years. The decision to keep Lincoln's portrait and the memorial design in place for over 5 decades, 1959 to 2008, wasn't lazy, it was intentional. It represented stability. The 1991 penny was a product of that stability, but let's also acknowledge how coins educate us silently. A child flipping through change may notice that the S mint mark only appears on proof coins. That D means Denver. That no mint mark means Philadelphia. This leads to curiosity. Curiosity leads to learning. Coins become tactile textbooks, teaching geography, art, and civics all at once. This is why museums, especially national ones, display coins with pride. A simple coin exhibit can encapsulate 2,000 years of civilization. You can trace the rise and fall of empires by looking at the metal used, the rulers chosen, the words engraved, and yet, the 1991 penny doesn't belong in a museum simply because of rarity or value. It belongs there as a cultural artifact. It belongs in a timeline that shows how democracies record their continuity through mass circulation. In that context, every coin becomes a document, not of law, but of identity, and over time, as coins leave circulation, their meaning sharpens. They are no longer tools, but echoes. The 1991 cent is now over 30 years old. It no longer appears freshly minted. You'll find it worn, dulled, sometimes corroded. But that's precisely why it deserves preservation. It is the record of who we chose to be in that moment. It says, this is who we admired. This is what we valued. In the same way archaeologists learn about past civilizations by studying their coinage, finding hoards buried in soil, coins worn smooth in Roman provinces, currency altered during conquests, future generations will study ours. They will look at the Lincoln cents of the 20th century and see the portrait of a republic that still revered its better angels. There's also a story in what didn't change. The obverse of the Lincoln cent, as sculpted by Victor David Brenner, remained untouched from 1909 to 2009, with only minor refinements to detail and relief. That kind of design stability is rare in world coinage. It implies not just respect, but reverence. By 1991, nearly every adult American could identify Lincoln from that engraving alone. Even young children recognize the coin, not from classrooms, but from pockets, floorboards, sidewalks. This collective recognition forms a shared visual vocabulary, something increasingly rare in fragmented digital culture, and so the 1991 cent becomes more than a coin. It becomes a civic icon. A daily affirmation. A message from government to citizen. This is what we believe in. And it becomes a message from the past to the future. We tried to remember. In this way, coins become storytellers. They don't speak in paragraphs. They don't need subtitles, they speak through metal. Through presence. Through repetition, and they don't disappear when systems change. Even when pennies are no longer minted, should Congress finally decide to end their production, they will persist. In jars. In drawers. In albums and shoeboxes and the dusty back corners of antique shops, and one day, perhaps a century from now, a child will pick up a 1991 penny and ask, "Who was Lincoln?" And from that question, a story will bloom. A coin cannot teach everything, but it can plant a seed. It can start a conversation. It can remind us that the smallest artifacts sometimes carry the greatest meaning. That's what the 1991 cent is, not just a monetary unit, not just a collectible, not just an obsolete object, but a mirror. A lesson. A symbol, and a whisper that says, "We were here. This mattered. Don't forget." In moments of crisis, coins often outlive everything else. Buildings collapse. Regimes fall. Markets crash. Technology moves on. But coins, especially those tucked away in pockets, drawers, and corners, endure. The 1991 Lincoln penny, minted at the tail end of the Cold War, carries no obvious ties to any singular crisis. But it has lived through many. The Gulf War. The tech bubble. 9/11. The Great Recession. COVID-19. It has slipped through the hands of people whose lives were forever changed, yet whose stories were not written in textbooks. Their fingerprints linger on its surface. Their memories, though undocumented, are embedded in the scratches, the patina, the erosion. Coins are not just economic tools in times of crisis, they become psychological anchors. When everything feels uncertain, physical currency provides a sense of continuity. That coppery clink in the palm is tactile reassurance. Something old still exists. Something real, uncorrupted by headlines or signal loss or battery percentages. And so, even a single 1991 penny, with its dented edge and dulled face, becomes a kind of artifact of hope. It's no coincidence that in the wake of natural disasters, wars, or economic collapse, people save their coins. During the Great Depression, families hoarded pennies in jars, not because they were worth much, but because they might be needed. In times of hyperinflation or collapse, when paper money becomes worthless, coins remain bartering tools. They have weight. Permanence. Even in protest, the penny has found its voice. In recent years, activists have used pennies to make symbolic statements. In 2016, veterans dumped thousands of pennies on the sidewalk outside the Department of Veterans Affairs to protest long wait times for care, each penny representing a soldier who had died by suicide while awaiting help. In 2021, a Georgia man paid his former employee's final paycheck in over 91,000 pennies soaked in oil, in an act both of spite and spectacle. It made international news. What began as a weaponized grievance became a larger commentary on labor rights and respect, and here, the penny was transformed again, from a medium of commerce into a medium of communication. Artists, too, have long recognized the symbolic weight of pennies. Sculptors have used thousands of them to create mosaics of Lincoln's face. Street artists have embedded them into sidewalks. Installation artists have poured piles of them into glass cases, creating shimmering copper landscapes. Some melt them, illegally, yes, but often metaphorically, to show how value is both destroyed and redefined in modern times. In all of this, the 1991 penny might seem indistinguishable. After all, it's not a key date. Not a transitional design. Not a rare error. But it is a penny. And that means it carries all the layered meaning that pennies have acquired across decades of human behavior, and now, perhaps, it's nearing the end of its journey. We live in a time when physical cash is rapidly disappearing. Digital payments are now the norm. Tap to pay. Apple Pay. Crypto. Venmo. Facial recognition. Fingerprint scans. The act of physically handing over a coin or a bill is becoming rare, an act tied more to age, geography, or ritual than necessity. Many young people today rarely use cash, let alone coins. In urban centers, it's not uncommon for days or weeks to pass without touching a single physical dollar. When cash is used, change is often discarded or dropped into take a penny, leave a penny trays, small, impersonal, mechanical graveyards for the lowest denomination in American commerce. And yet, here's the paradox: as coins become less used, they become more noticed. What was once invisible, background noise in our daily transactions, now stands out. Finding a 1991 penny on the ground becomes an event, not an annoyance. Holding one feels oddly nostalgic, almost ceremonial. In this way, disuse gives birth to reverence. Obsolescence creates meaning. Future generations may never use a penny in real life. They might learn about them in museums, on YouTube videos like this one, or from stories told by grandparents. They'll hear about a time when prices ended in .99, and when people argued over whether the mint should even keep making them. They might learn that a penny, this small, light, inexpensive object, was once a battlefield for debates about inflation, waste, efficiency, tradition, and national identity. They might study the penny the way we study the Roman denarius or the Spanish maravedi, not for what it could buy, but for what it meant. And if, by chance, a 1991 penny survives long enough to fall into their hands, it won't matter that it's not rare. It will matter that it existed, that it made the journey, that someone kept it safe long enough to pass it forward. This is the hidden immortality of coins. They do not age the way we do, they do not forget, they carry no ego, no pride, no politics, only witness. Each coin is a fossil of the everyday. A proof that someone once stood at a counter, ordered coffee, bought a newspaper, took a breath. That's the real story of the 1991 Lincoln penny, not the mintage. Not the mint mark. Not the condition or even the value, but the moments it lived through, the people it met, the silence it carried. In the end, the penny is less about currency, and more about continuity. It is a circle for a reason. It goes, and returns. It is flipped, and flipped again. It is lost, and found. It is spent, and remembered. And so, the next time you find a penny, whether it's from 1991 or any other year, pause. Look closer. Ask yourself, where has it been? What has it seen? And what does it say about us, that we built a world on trust in something so small, so round, so simple? Maybe it says that even in our complexity, we still believe in the power of little things. Maybe it says that stories don't need to be big to matter. Maybe, in some quiet, enduring way, it says, this was enough. In time, almost everything disappears. Buildings collapse. Documents fade. Stories change in the telling. Even monuments crumble, their stone smoothed by wind and rain, their meaning blurred by generations. What was once permanent becomes vulnerable. What was once central becomes peripheral. And in this quiet erosion, we come to understand something fundamental, that everything we touch, create, spend, or save is temporary. Even the 1991 penny, especially the 1991 penny. It was born into a world that barely noticed it. A world that needed billions of its kind, but never stopped to thank it. A world that placed it in the background of transactions, jingling beside keys, forgotten under car seats, slipped into dusty jars on laundry room shelves. And yet, it endured, because despite its low value, its sameness, its near invisibility, the penny did its job. It existed. It moved. It bore witness to 3 decades of a changing America. And perhaps now, as fewer and fewer are struck, and as more and more are lost or discarded, its importance begins to clarify. That's how memory works. We don't miss things until they're gone. We don't think about what was always there, until suddenly, it isn't. The 1991 cent will vanish slowly, not all at once. You won't wake up one day and find them gone. No. They'll fade like old photographs. Bit by bit, year by year. Corroded by air, washed away by time, melted in bulk lots, forgotten in machines that no longer accept coins at all. The disappearance will be quiet. Like dust collecting behind old picture frames. Like leaves falling where no one walks, and still, some will remain, not many. Just a few, some will survive in collections, sealed in plastic tombs, their bright red copper glow defying the years. Others will linger in boxes passed down through families. Or in coin shops, waiting for someone to ask, "Do you have a 1991 D in mint state red?" And still others will sit unnoticed, dropped behind shelves, in jars sealed in attics, resting on window sills where the sun will slowly bleach them dull. These are not forgotten. Not really. They are simply waiting. They are becoming relics, relics of a time when pennies mattered, relics of a century that taught its values in metal, relics of a world that slowed down, counted change, looked people in the eye at counters and checkout lines and diners, relics of Lincoln. Of trust. Of continuity. If one day, a child finds such a coin, maybe a 1991 cent coated in the soft oxidation of time, they might pick it up not because of its value, but because of its feeling. Because it feels like something. It feels like weight. Like permanence. Like a story left behind on purpose, and maybe they'll ask, "Why don't we use these anymore?" And maybe someone will say, "We used to. Everyone had them. We just stopped noticing," and maybe, just maybe, that child will place the coin in their pocket, not for spending, but for keeping. That, in the end, is all any of us can hope for. To be kept. To be remembered. To matter, even a little, even once. The 1991 Lincoln penny has done its part. It was never flashy. It never asked to be special. But through its simplicity, it captured something profound, that even the smallest, quietest things carry meaning when we stop to listen. So whether you're a collector, a historian, or simply someone who picked up a penny from the ground and wondered about its past, you're part of its journey now. You're part of the story, you are the memory it needed, you are the reason it endures, and maybe that's the greatest value of all, not its market price, not its grade, not its rarity, but the fact that, for even a brief moment, it mattered to someone, and that is something no auction hammer, no grading label, no spreadsheet of coin values can ever truly measure. So hold on to your 1991 penny. Not because it's rare, but because it's real, because it was there, and now, so are you. Thank you for listening, thank you for caring, and thank you for remembering.